Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Wow. Hi. It's been a long South by already, right? It's only day 2. It's like, what, 30 more days to go? Welcome to Austin. I live here. My name is AJ. I'm the general manager of the Roost Podcast Network. Our company was born here in Austin. And it just, it runs through the veins of everything that our company is about. It is as weird as you can imagine and has sort of been as long running as it has because of the energy that Austin pumps through our veins. But that's enough of that. I'm here to actually tell you a little bit about my city, and then we're going to get into what this short presentation really is about. It's about the anatomy of a hit podcast. But first, we're going to do a little, let's see if this works. Anybody know what that is?
It's an armadillo.
Yeah, that's one of our state mammals. Super cute, right? Anybody staying at a hotel near the river, when you go out there, you probably see one of these little critters running around, right? They're all over the place. But I have a piece of advice. Under no circumstances, should you not pick one up, give it a hug, give it a little bit of a kiss, perhaps put a leash on it, take it home. It's a wonderful souvenir for your kids. Armadillos are friendly, and honestly, I know that there's a little, some, viral disease that typically, is known to come from them, but listen, we're living in 2025, we got the measles, so why not a little leprosy? It's okay. Another thing to think about, anyone know who this is? That's Aaron Franklin. This is a local celebrity, right? One of the best barbecue pit masters in Texas and probably the entire country. The reason I'm pointing him out to you right here is because if you see this man on the street, you do your patriotic duty and you give him a salute. All right? He is an American treasure right there. Thank you for your service, sir. And this next one, do you know what this is? This is just a man waving hello. This is probably a local Austinite. Don't worry, he's not trying to mug you. He's actually friendly. So, give him a wave back. That is generally that is a sincere smile right there. Or he just moved out of the Bay Area and is no longer paying $15,000 of rent every month. So he's a pretty happy camper right there. But now let's get into the real reason why we're here, and it's about the anatomy of a hit podcast. And specifically, we're talking about talk-based podcast. Now, didn't know necessarily who was actually going to be in the room. Typically, when I do a presentation, it's usually to industry folk. Raise of hand out here, who has worked in Hollywood? TV, film, maybe a little bit of radio. Of those people, are you here to learn about podcasting for the first time, how to transition into the game? Ooh, not that many. Okay, not my crowd. So, anyways, but we're still going to do it anyways. We're going to do it anyways. But for those of you who have been in the industry for a long time, earmuffs. But we're going to go through some basics that we generally see out there. So, what you see here is just a smattering of some of the top 20 podcasts that are long-running, consistent. Some of them, or at least most of them, have been around for years. And there are certain things that, especially if you're coming from a more traditional background, more of a Hollywood background, if you've worked in TV in one of the big cable networks or one of the big broadcast networks, what are the certain things that a typical developer actually points out about a hit show? It's, wow, that's really interesting talent. They're super funny, they're super engaging, they really look great. They have an authentic POV. I don't even know what that really means, but we're gonna get into it in a little bit. But authentic POV, they might see it as like, oh, they are just their real self. It gets a little bit deeper than that in podcasting. It could also be a popular subject, a popular category. Politics is really hot. We're in an election year. There could be a number of different reasons, but a big thing around there is about popular subjects and certainly its timing. You also could think that a podcast is a hit show because it has interesting guests and the level of access that they can have to, politicians, celebrities, and what have you. And of course, the frequency, the fact that you can always count on an episode coming out of this podcast. But actually, it goes a little bit deeper than that. Let's level up a little bit. Let's actually ladder up. So there have been different essays written. There have been different things out there on like what actually constitutes a hit podcast. And when I really started to think about it, there are 3 distinct pillars of what actually makes up a hit podcast. And the 3 things are creators, connection, community. Let's get a little deeper than that. First one is creators. There is a reason why it's no longer called Spotify for podcasters, but now called Spotify for creators as an audio hosting services, because I think even Spotify and many people out there are realizing that these guys are just we're not limiting ourselves to a medium. There's something about creators that has been sort of instituted and sort of adapted since the days that YouTube actually came on the scene in 2005. And also the days of the 2010s to the 2020s, the glory days of some of the biggest YouTube OG pioneers out there, that we learned actually a thing or two in those days. We know that creators are not talent. Creators are the visionaries, right? They are the storytellers. And we hear this over and over again, but I think sometimes it actually falls on deaf ears. But what I'm really trying to say is that creators are the business, right? It's their show. They are the driving force. Whereas in Hollywood, you might be a producer, you might be a production company, and you might cast a creator in order to borrow some of their influence in order to actually make a hit show. But the truth is, in podcasting, your best case scenario where you've casted a hit, an incredible influencer, and now you have a hit show on your hands, that is both your best case scenario and your worst case scenario. Because that show was actually that creator's from the very get-go, right? And now they'll take it right back. I want you to ask Barstool what they think. All right, moving on. Stamina, self-sufficiency, adaptation. What I'm talking about here is that because they're not talent, they are not showing up for a job. These guys have stamina. When they're ready to shoot something, they pull out their phone and they go ahead and shoot it. They are not asking for anyone's permission. They are getting it done, and they know how to do things on a shoestring budget. Most podcast episodes out there, especially the ones that have a video audio component, can be done anywhere from $500 to $5,000 an episode. Most episodes of TV, especially unscripted, I used to work in them, and we used to be 150 grand for a half hour of content, all the way up to $1 million for an hour, right? So we're not sort of living in that world anymore. You have to know how to do things on a shoestring budget and also work at the speed and the efficiency that YouTube creators have known how to do this for so long. And they know how to change when they're told that they need to change because they're listening to their audience consistently. The other thing is authenticity. We were sort of touching on this earlier. Here's the thing about authenticity. Authenticity is about the perception of the target audience that they're after. It to them is the only one. It's a very subjective thing. It's only to them that it's actually authenticity. That it's only authentic in their eyes. But what that means is the person or their point of view. There's a level of confirmation bias, right? You guys have all heard that. We see it in politics all the time. But what they say and who they are is a mirror reflection of who they think they are, or an aspirational mirror into who they think that they want to be or think that they actually are. You look at somebody like Joe Rogan, you sort of see him as an independent thinker. Some people might think of him as sort of an agro male sort of stereotype in some ways. And some others might actually see him in that same way. Others might see him in a different point of view, but he is actually a perfect example of this. And we're going to go into a little bit about Joe Rogan and the connection piece here. They're also audience obsessed with every single thing that they do. I'm telling you, we run a network of about 75 shows, multiple YouTube first creators, and they are always looking at everything through the lens of, yes, creative, but first, how will my audience respond to this? How will my audience react to this? Because they have seen enough content out there and they live in their comment section to see what actually gets a rise out of them, what actually sort of falls on deaf ears. And the last thing is probably the most important thing. They are 100% behind this, right? Again, they are the visionaries, they are the storytellers, they are the media business. They are mission oriented. They know that the podcast is not just a podcast. It's the middle of a flywheel of a much larger thing that they're trying to build, because everything is about the subject matter and the connection that they're going to have with their intended audience. The reason why these shows are hit shows is because they tap into the zeitgeist. And these creators are so well connected to their audience, they know what they think about day and night. All right? The biggest shows that you see out there are about a larger message or a larger idea that reigns above just the content for entertainment purposes. Yes. I already got the sign-off sign right there. You look at Joe Rogan. We actually did a show with Joe Rogan when I was developing shows over at the Sci-Fi USA Network. It was called Joe Rogan Questions Everything. And through that process, we learned that Joe Rogan's popularity, and the reason why people tune in is because early days he had ufologists, he had conspiracy theorists, he had all those different types of stuff. He still has that today, but he's sort of scattered in some politicians, things like that. It's about a larger message. And if you look at all of his shows, it's about questioning everything. It's about questioning the world around us. And he sort of looks back to his audience as a mirror reflection of them and sort of gives them a wink and the sun saying, I am one of you. I am asking questions through your POV. I want you to trust me. That is my authentic self that I am presenting to you, and I'm bringing all these other people so that we can question them together. Now, in TV, timing is everything, and so it's important that when you're actually developing shows that we're asking the why this and why now, right? How is this relevant? Now, it's not just necessarily, oh, this is a really entertaining subject. It's something that I think that audiences are going to find really compelling. Why? Why do you think that this is something that they'll care about, especially right now at this point in time? In TV, we say it has legs. Does it have longevity? Is it something that is a concept that it not just fits the zeitgeist of today, but can potentially fit a version of the zeitgeist for tomorrow? And then the last thing is make noise. Now, in TV, we talk about create noise in terms of be boisterous, do something that's unexpected. But in podcasting, it's about having a fresh, authentic take that, yes, sort of makes waves, but is still clear to the identity of the premise of the show. Sorry, I got to speed up this a little bit. Then the final part is the most important part, which is community. It's about the deep relationships that they actually built with those audiences. This is about trust. This is about consistency. They know that you're there when you actually need them. This is about access. You are going to be expanding your distribution. You're not going to just live on audio. You're not just going to live on YouTube. You're going to think outside the box and put this anywhere and everywhere that you might find your intended audience. But the big thing here is about the conversation. You are not creating a show just to put it out there and people just all of a sudden discover it. This is about a conversation. This is about a back and forth dialogue. If you have a social media manager on your team, fire them. Because it should be the host that's doing it. The host needs to be the one that's interacting with their audience day in and day out. In fact, I argue that 60% of the time is on the content, 40% of it should be on socials, AMAs, forums, comments, TikTok lives, everything. They need to be engaging with that community. Because that trust is where the money actually comes in. That's what converts into advertising. And then certainly also create a hub for fans to connect with one another. Sorry, I'm rushing a little bit here. So, in Hollywood, let's throw out the idea of conventional casting. Let's talk about visionary partners. Creators are the business. Connection. Let's throw out the idea of conventional show format development. Let's bring in universal relevant messages that reach a large audience. And that means that you have to do more on-the-ground field work, understand your audiences, and really engage with them on a day-to-day basis. And the community. Let's throw out the idea of just conventional marketing. It's all on your hands. So what it means is constant conversation on socials. Why? Because the internet, that's how it works. So, not TV, same rules do not apply. This is a creator economy. This is direct to consumer. That is the big thing right now. Entertainment is moving from a intermediary environment, right, that's delivered to your TV sets, and we are going direct to consumer. No one in between. This is the new mainstream. Could it be the new broadcast? Let's challenge it a little bit. So, with that, there's my contact information. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great South by.